Last week, the Department of Homeland Security sent out a warning to law enforcement agencies to be on high alert for cyber attacks. Now, the rationale for this is because of what's going on in the Ukraine. Russia is stepping up their game. They feel like we are, how do they put it, affecting their national security by what we're doing. And we have thought that in the past, the Russian government has been behind other attacks here in the US and, of course, in the Ukraine and other areas. Now, I have to say that even though we might know that an attack originated in Russia or China or wherever, we don't always know if the government is behind it, but we kind of suspect that is true. And you know, for warfare, one of the things is disruption. So we're calling this WMD, Weapons of Mass Disruption, not necessarily destruction, because cyber attacks can disrupt daily events, be it at hospitals, at your bank, supply chain, when you need gasoline. Many instances of cyber attacks have occurred, things to go down, things to lock up, things to not work. And that can be very disrupting. And we know as a country, we haven't done that well with the pandemic disruptions, right? So to add something else on top of that would not be good. What would even be worse if there was a coordinated attack, right? Hit water, supply chain, medical, etc., all at once in an area. Think of what that would do as a national disaster. Well, I'd like to talk about this a little bit, but then tell you what you can do to help protect yourself and your family if certain cyber disruptions do occur. There's been several cyber incidents in the past 12 months. I mean, remember the Colonial Pipeline attack where people on the East Coast couldn't get gasoline? And you know what that was caused by? My understanding is one password leak. Yep, that allowed the whole thing to go down for, what was it, 2 weeks? Well, and of course, the solar wind hack. We're still trying to recover for that because that went into so many other servers and systems. It had far-reaching effect. And I thought it would be interesting to look at this site. Now, this is the CSIS organization. It focuses on cyber attacks on government agencies, defense, and high-tech companies or economic crimes with losses of more than $1 million. And it keeps a timeline of cyber incidents. So let's just look at last month, January 2022. So here we have a hacker group went against a railway, a Chinese hacking group, breached several German pharmaceutical and tech firms. We have hackers shutting down internet traffic to North Korea. Wonder if that was us. Hackers breached the Canadian Foreign Ministry. A series of attacks against, a high-stakes Minecraft tournament. Now that would affect a lot of our younger Americans. I know my grandchildren love Minecraft. And this was the Greek Parliament. Here it is in Australia. And this was a big one. This was when they hacked into the International Committee of the Red Cross, gaining access to data of more than 500,000 people. And here's to Ukraine. And those were just the reported attacks, right? One of my employees' husband works at an auto supply company, rather large company, and their whole server system was shut down for over 2 weeks near the holidays because of a ransom attack. And it affected, if they can't produce something, then whatever auto company it's supposed to go to, they can't produce. I mean, it's a domino type effect. Now, I have no idea if they paid the ransomware or somehow they got the information and were able to stop the ransomware hacking, but it can cause domino type effects. So, what can you do? I mean, this is a national thing. What can you do to protect yourself? And I'm not talking about protecting your digital information because that's a whole different video. But there are some things you can do. You know, the National Health Service in the United Kingdom was taken down by ransomware. And I mean, in some cases, they're still trying to get things back up. And it meant that people couldn't get their cancer treatments. People couldn't get the treatments they needed. Maybe medical records are not available because they're using an electronic medical record. This, again, can have far-reaching effects. So, one of the things you can do is make sure you have printed information. Know what prescriptions and your dosages are, what your diagnoses are, what are test results, any type of medical information that could help you if you would have to go to the hospital and your electronic medical record is not available. And I'm going to make a video later this month to cover this in a broader fashion because I think it's really important. And we already talked about the Colonial Pipeline attack. So it's really a good idea, if you can, to safely store some gasoline. And I have a video on that. It's always in that corner. I think it's be that corner. That tells you how I store gasoline. But good idea in case the pipeline goes down. Most of us kind of depend on our debit or our credit card when we're making purchases, or maybe we're doing it through our phone. We don't even have cash anymore. Well, understand that financial institutions are 300 times more likely to get hit by a cyber attack, and that can bring them down. And with it, maybe the ATM won't be working. You're not going to be able to get out the cash you need. So try to keep a cash stash in your house or in a place that you can easily access it. Really is a good safety mechanism. Now, I think we remember, I think it was last year in Florida, someone tried to attack, well, they did attack the water supply. They tried to add the sodium hydroxide at a much greater frequency, volume, I should say. But luckily it got caught before it contaminated the water supply and killed off a bunch of people. But in that case, they could just close down the water supply. So what do you need to do? Have water stored. Make sure you have a source of water. Very, very important. And, you know, here in Michigan, we've had, where I'm living, temperatures at 0 or below 0 lately. It gets darn cold. And if you don't have a heating source, well, what would happen if the power grid got taken down? Do you have an alternative way to heat your home? You know, be it propane on a little My Buddy heater or a wood-burning stove. Maybe you have solar power to somehow run a heater. Anyway, that is really a good idea. Because DOE, Secretary Jennifer Granholm, in June of last year told CNN that enemies of the United States have the capability to shut down the U.S. power grid. And, quote, they are very malign actors trying even as we speak, unquote. So, make sure you have a way to produce heat if you would need it in a crisis. And last year, JBS, which is the biggest producer of meat, anyway, according to sales records, of beef, poultry, and pork from Australia to South America and Europe, and in the US, they're the biggest beef processor. Well, they were cyber attacked. And here in the US, one of their subsidiaries, which is Pilgrim's Pride, was also hit by the attack, and they are the second largest U.S. poultry processor. My understanding is that the company paid $11 million in ransom to cyber criminals. But that just shows how a cyber attack could shut down. I mean, maybe they don't want ransom money. Maybe it's government backed and they just want to shut things down. So of course, one of the things you have to do, have food storage. It's really, really important. So what are the things we've talked about? Storing food, storing water, having gasoline if needed, having an alternative way to heat if that's important where you live, having a cash stash, and making sure you have printed medical information. You know what? Even if we never get cyber attacked and you don't have to worry about systems going down, all of these things are great things to do to prep for your family, because these things will cover you in many other different types of disasters and emergencies. So let's hope we don't get a coordinated cyber attack, but please do the things I'm recommending, because it will make your family prepared and a lot safer for no matter what happens in the future. As always, please subscribe and share the knowledge. Thank you.